was a warm summer afternoon with the cattle walking around and the dogs barking at whatever they see go past their eyes. But today felt a little stranger. The dogs were barking more than usual, and the cattle would not stay near the front gate. Usually the cattle like to rest by the gate, but not today. I live right next to a hill that separates my property from my neighbors. Several Native American families live in our area, mostly Navajo, and they like to have occasional get-togethers for our small community. There is always great food and dancing, but my favorite is when we sit by the fire and tell each other the folk tales of the area. One of these parties was tonight, and I was excited because it was the first one of the summer. I finished making my casserole, picked out my outfit, and prepped my camera for some pictures. The sun was going down, making a beautiful sunset, and the sky was slowly descending into darkness. As I approached the party, I could hear it was in full swing. I grabbed some food and caught up with neighbors I hadn't seen in a while. It was a couple of hours until people started gathering around the fire and preparing to hear the stories people had to share. There were a few of the same stories that were said at every fire said again. At some point they started talking about the hill by my house. Mike, a lifetime resident of the community, said, "My great-grandfather told me a story about when he was growing up. It is said that there is a ghost lady who haunts the hill. My grandfather said that in 1878, thieves tortured a woman for hours on the hill after killing her husband and child. When she died, her body was rolled down the hill. People say they can still hear the thumping and cracking of her broken body tumbling down." After Mike, the local community leader, Russ, shared his story. My tale goes back even further. It is about the Skinwalker. It is said to be here above the hill stalking all of us at night. Its eyes are blood red and you're cursed if you make direct eye contact. It can control your mind, cause disease, and immobilize anything that gets in its way. This is something that has been a threat to our community for years. Our ancestors were the first to encounter this monstrous creature. Some people think it is a Bigfoot because of its size and strength. The elders in our community have said that the noises that could be heard on the hill are from the Skinwalker. The rest of the night was stories of large unknown creatures and bumps in the night. The last person to share their story was a man I hadn't met before. He said, "I don't know what it is about that hill, but there is something up there, and I have proof." He pulled out his cell phone and passed it around. The photo was of the hill, but there was a bush on top. Closer inspection revealed that the bush had a human shape and was solid and dark compared to the other bush on the hill. A loud murmur went up around the fire as people discussed the photo and asked the storyteller questions about his sighting. I sat there listening, trying to fully grasp what was being said about that hill by my house. Eventually it was time to go home. About a mile walk down a trail that winds between the properties of a few neighbors. For most of the walk I had neighbors to keep me company, but my walking slowly dwindled away as they peeled off towards their own houses. I still had about a quarter mile to go when I was finally alone, the hill a black mass ahead of me. As I reached the base of the hill, the hair started to rise on the back of my neck. I blamed it on the fireside stories, but I couldn't shake the creepy feeling that someone, or something, was watching me. Above me from the top of the hill, I heard a cracking sound, and that was all the encouragement I needed to race the small final distance to my house. Breathless, I reached my porch and looked towards the top of the hill. I'm sure I was imagining it, but it looked as though a bush was moving, a black shape against a dark blue moonlit sky. I rushed inside to where my dogs were barking, locking the deadbolts behind me. An uneventful hour passed, and I finally fell asleep after convincing myself that my imagination had gotten the best of me, only to be startled awake in the early pre-dawn hours. My dogs were crashing against the back door, growling and barking. Outside, the cows were bellowing loudly. I opened the door and my dogs flew outside as I grabbed a flashlight and looked around towards where the dogs were running. They stopped and remained bristled, growling at something by the bush. I saw a large rock fly at my dogs, so I shined my light in the direction it came from. Above the bush was a black shape with eyes that reflected a reddish color back at me. I only saw it for a moment before it turned and ran towards the hill, so I didn't see much, but what I saw was enough to convince me that something lives around here. After that night, I haven't seen the creature again. I posted trail cams around my property to see if I can capture footage of it and figure out what it was doing and why it came so close to my home. I still hear noises coming from the direction of the hill, but I'm too scared to investigate on my own, and my neighbors have no desire to join me out there. I know they think it is a skinwalker, but my encounter makes me think that it is probably some higher intelligence animal.